Achtung, the Vox of YouTube. It's me again, your pal Nani, and today we're here to talk about another very important aspect of the game, the military. As I mentioned before, you have a finite amount of soldiers that goes up. Check out my basics video if you don't believe me. And your ultimate goal in Victoria 2 is to have a strong army where you have a nearly equal amount of soldiers out as to soldiers you can have. When it gets later on, this can be ludicrous because, believe me, I've been in the situation where I'm Germany and I have to build 385 units at once. Typically, you don't need that many. Anyway, this is the most important screen for any aspiring general. It gives you all the buttons you need, including create leader buttons, build army and navy, and mobilize. If you get into war and you need some extra manpower, you can mobilize your conscripts to fight for you in battles. However, they're slightly less, they're not slightly less effective than your normal infantry, but they do take longer to reinforce, organize, and once you make them, you get something called production impact, which basically means that all your farmers and miners and builders and shit are off fighting your war for you, so essentially nothing on the home front is getting done. Down here on the bottom there is a good display of glitches caused by the glitch DLC. Oh darn it! Drafty users may have noticed the jump cut there. I apologize. Anyway, war exhaustion. The thing with war exhaustion is, if it goes too high, basically everything bad that can happen to your country happens. People get angrier at you, people want peace more, people revolt, less people will be joining the army, all kinds of bad stuff. You don't want this to get too high. However, thankfully it has a very, very high limit. It goes down pretty quickly, and essentially, unless you're literally at war the whole game and pretty much losing every battle, you never need that much worry about your troops. Supply consumption, supplies are basically the equivalent to the morale in Europa Universae. Almost said Medieval Universae. Basically, your supplies determine how organized your troops can be at max. And going on low supply is bad. That's another thing affected by the national stockpile meter. Going low on supply is bad, unless you're at peacetime, obviously. Because if you do, then a well-supplied army will basically beat you even in ridiculous battles 10-1. Not good things. Organization regain. Basically, how fast your units organize, which is another factor of how well they do in battle. A unit with no organization, unlike Hearts of Iron 3 for Simplify, is a very bad thing, because as with supplies, they'll again be beaten 3-1. You also have your land and naval organizations. Bit subquality there. Your unit's start experience determines how experienced your units are when they start. I know, bound banking. Experience determines things like, they basically determine the train of all your meters, because in battle, basically what happens is that all your meters train until eventually one army either routs because the battle's going way too bad, or one of your meters runs out, at which point that your army will either rout instantly, or if it's not bad enough, get deleted. It's going to lead to some silly things, which I'll explain later. Recruit time is, it starts at 100%, and slowly goes down over time. Well, not over time, but with technology, I believe. Recruit time, jump cut time again, sorry. Oh, they even sent by a train. That was only just going to honk its horn, just to ruin my let's explain. Anyway, recruit time, as you can assume, lower recruit time means that your units will be coming out faster. Which is a good thing, because as you'll notice later on when we actually start getting into wars proper, recruiting time is not exactly in your favor. your your regulars pop up in 45 days. That's a little more than that's quite a bit more than a month. And even that in low time is almost the entire occupation span of one piece of territory. Your combat width is basically how many idiots who can fit in battle at once. Obviously, the lower combat width you have, and the more idiots who can fit in battle at once, the better you're going to end up. Because, what's better? One gun firing at you or 30? Yeah, I thought so. Well, what's worse, one gun firing, but you know what I mean. Digging cap. Digging starts out relatively low, but the thing with digging is that, the higher your digging cap is, the better you get a bonus if you start a battle having stood around for a few days to set up camp defenses, etc., etc. The thing with digging cap is that eventually you'll get to the point where you'll really want to try and lure enemies to battles on defense. It'll get to the point where it'll even overshadow attack penalties and make attacking basically impossible for your enemy, while they'll just bounce off and you can attack back. Unless you're fighting an equally superior nation, in that case we all know how World War I battles turned out. Military tactics is basically how competent your generals are. To be perfectly honest, I'm not sure if this affects a very base value. I think it just makes battles more likely to go in your favor on what they call rolls, which will, as I said, be explained when we go to war. Now, here's our army types. Each unit is a brigade made up of 3,000, and you can combine multiple to form an army. Or you can just make one to form an army, but that's basically a brigade. Now, hate to bore you, but it's time to explain. But in a general sense, you have three types of Volks you can put out. Infantry, which are your footmen, making up the beef of your battles and firing the rifles. You have your recon units, cavalry type units, which scout out for your battles and occupy faster, especially the airplane and the hussar. And artillery units, or indirect fire units, artillery and tanks, which are basically the brunt of your offense that help you attack considerably and do well in defense too. Now, those who just wanted that explanation may skip ahead a bit until about the point where you see me pointing at the airplane and gibbering like an idiot, because now it's time to go into an in-depth detail of the units. Well, not that in-depth. The irregulars here, I really wish I could get stats on these, but hold on. We don't need 2 stacks of 21 right now. Goodbye. Go forward 1 day. Go forward 1 day. There we go. Now, for the first few I'll have stats, for the rest you still can't see. Irregulars, as you can probably figure out from their stats, aren't particularly great. However, they only require 10 wool to build, wool being the cheapest and most common resource in the game. They build in 45 days and only need wool for upkeep, presumably supplying the rest of the stuff. However, they lose discipline, which is kind of a double-edged sword kind of thing. And they have the lowest attack defense and relatively low max speed. And they consume a bit over their share of supplies. Actually, I think everybody's at 180 right now. Build irregulars. If you have nothing else to build, they'll get enough units, so like you're fighting a relatively unimportant parties, they're basically the best unit you can have. Having artillery is a great boost to any army early on, and especially more so when they get upgraded. You can kind of keep artillery dominance when upgraded, but eventually they'll kind of lose out as their status is best. Engineers are a bit of a silly unit. They cost weird resources, they have weird stats, and they have weird attacks. Basically, they're slightly weaker infantry, though they do get while other units get negatives to things like going over rivers, attacking forts, ergo things that, would stop an army, engineers can usually help out your troops in those kinds of situations and will negate and for their individual squads, sometimes even get a bonus, which is kind of silly, from doing negating stats. Also, just having them around makes them feel more confident and gives a slight morale boost, which is still in the game, by the way. I totally lied. It's what, I don't remember what it does, but it's said, and it's kind of important, which is good. Guards are going to be your main brand of infantry for the second half of the game. They're basically elite infantry that are more expensive and costly to build, but do considerably better in battle. Dragoons are your basic cavalry upgrade. They're actually basically infantry on horseback. They do get similar upgrades, and at the end of time, they'll basically be just kind of better versions of your foot soldier infantry, except, well, no, not quite. The infantry will still have their basic infantry bonuses. Cuirassiers are basically hardcore attack cavalry. If you're going to use a unit that'll be fast attacking, use Cuirassiers. They don't have as much reconnaissance value as dragoons, especially not hussars and planes, but they do function better in battle and more of a general use if you want a fast attacker unit. Hussars are where a more modern cavalry doctrine begins to kick in. Oh, by the way, here's artillery stats. I forgot to mention those. Yes. Hussars will have a high reconnaissance value, which means that they'll help your infantry see a lot in battle, and even though they're relatively fragile units, they'll help out occupation a lot, because the higher reconnaissance you have, the higher occupation value you have. I assume that's because you just have units that can travel a lot faster, lock down a lot more places, scout out enemy pockets, etc. Infiltration allows you to build armor, which is basically your in-game standard. Armor is the best unit in the game all around. Having armor in an army immediately increases its value, and upgrades you get for it make it even better. At the end of the game, it'll be almost rather foolish not to have armor in your unit. Seem rather familiar? Yeah, they're kind of the artillery of the late game. Finally, aeronautics allow you to build the airplane. Airplanes have an infinitely high reconnaissance value, decent attack, but they are, as with engineers, and as I kind of forgot to mention on tanks, you need another unit in it to help it out. I suggest putting on a hussar, so that you still have a really, really fast and high reconnaissance unit, not to evade down. Now it's time for, well, first let's build a cavalry to replace that guy. The basic army controls are as such. You can click to select, right click to move. You can, as you saw earlier, create a new unit from that very button, separate it, at which point he uses a new army himself, and combine it back. Now, next time we'll have part 2 of this new series of explanatory, well, not part 2 of the military explanation of these new videos, where we will be talking about leaders and navies. Auf Wiedersehen!